Welcome to another episode of the Bark Brigade podcast by Doggozila Magazine. Today, we will talk about a topic that every dog owner at least once have faced this problem, and the problem is the loud barking when your dog hears the doorbell ringing or hears the knocking on your door. In this episode, we will show you about the doorbell dog etiquette and how to fix the problem and have a calm and peaceful home whenever someone rings the doorbell or knock on your door.
Yeah, it is. It's quite the universal struggle, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this because, for the person listening right now, I want you to imagine if if every time your phone buzzed with a text message, your heart rate just instantly doubled.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right. Like your blood pressure spikes, your vision tunnels, and you feel this overwhelming, biological urge to just scream at the top of your lungs.
That sounds absolutely exhausting.
It sounds like a total nightmare.
Really?
But if you're listening to this deep dive, you know that is exactly the biological reality for your dog when that doorbell rings.
It really is.
So today, we are taking a massive deep dive into Simon Tracy's incredibly insightful October 2024 article on Doggozila. We're looking at the actual mechanics of why our living rooms turn into absolute pandemonium.
Right, and more importantly, how we can practically and simply, I should add, transform that chaos into a sanctuary of calm.
Exactly. We're going to dig into the canine mind, the biology of habit, and how you can finally reclaim your front door.
Well, I love that smartphone analogy you just used because it frames the problem correctly right out of the gate. We are not just talking about an annoyance here.
No, not at all.
We are talking about a significant physiological event. The stakes here are high for the well-being of the animal and, the human, too. A chaotic doorbell response creates a massive sudden spike of stress.
Oh, 100%.
No.
I mean, when that bell rings and the dog goes into a frenzy, your own human heart rate shoots up.
Your cortisol levels rise. You might be holding a hot cup of coffee or trying to wrangle a toddler, and suddenly there's a 90-decibel alarm going off in your house.
It's pure panic.
Right. And here is the really critical part. The dog is incredibly sensitive to your biometric changes.
Wait, really? Like they can feel that we are stressed?
Oh, absolutely. They feel your frantic energy. They hear your tightened vocal cords. They see your rushed movements toward the door. It becomes this localized, vicious cycle of escalating anxiety.
So it just feeds on itself.
Exactly. So to begin addressing this, we have to pause and look at the evolutionary mismatch happening in your hallway.
I want to dig into that evolutionary mismatch, actually, because there is so much myth-making around why dogs lose their minds at the door.
Oh, the myths are everywhere.
Right. I hear from so many new dog owners who are just starting their training journey, and they are convinced, genuinely convinced their dog is being malicious.
Yes. Or trying to be the alpha.
Exactly. They think, my dog is barking to dominate the household, or my dog's aggressively trying to attack the delivery driver. It feels really personal to the owner.
It does feel personal when you're in the middle of it.
But the article really strips that away, which I love. We project these complex, almost Machiavellian human motivations onto them, when the reality is usually just a cocktail of over-arousal, anticipation, and, well, sometimes genuine fear.
That's right. To take that a step further, think about what a dog is bred to do over thousands of years. They are bred to be aware of their environment, right? To alert the family unit to anomalies.
Right, they're the ultimate security system.
Exactly. But now, introduce the modern doorbell. It is a high-pitched, sudden electronic intrusion that often comes from a speaker located inside the house.
Not even at the perimeter.
Right, not even outside. It's completely unnatural.
Yeah.
Figuring out how your specific dog processes this anomaly is the first major hurdle for the owner listening.
So it's different for every dog.
Oh, totally. For some dogs, the actual mechanical or electronic sound is an auditory assault. It startles them physically. For others, it is a masterpiece of classical conditioning.
Pavlov's bell.
Exactly, Pavlov's bell. They have learned, through repeated exposure, that this specific ding-dong sound is the precursor to a massive environmental shift, meaning a stranger entering their safe space.
It is pure Pavlovian conditioning. Which brings me to a scenario that I think perfectly illustrates how we fix this. Let's go back to that smartphone analogy for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine you have a very specific, loud, abrasive ringtone set just for your boss.
Oh, no. Just thinking about that makes me tense.
Right. When that ringtone goes off on a Sunday evening, it triggers instant work-related dread. Your stomach ties in knots.
Yeah.
But what if every single time that specific ringtone went off, someone immediately walked into the room and handed you your absolute favorite decadent piece of chocolate?
Okay, I like where this is going.
And they never actually made you pick up the phone or talk to your boss. If that happened consistently for a month, your bodily response to that sound would completely flip, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would.
You would hear the boss's ringtone, and instead of a panic attack, your brain would release dopamine. You would think, oh my goodness, it is chocolate time. We are essentially trying to execute this exact psychological flip with our dogs, aren't we?
What's fascinating here is that that is the exact mechanism of desensitization and counterconditioning. You are actively rewiring the dog's emotional architecture.
Rewiring the architecture. I like that.
We are taking a stimulus that currently predicts chaos and reframing it so it predicts profound joy. And the blueprint provided in the source material for this is brilliantly simple, especially if you are a novice owner trying to keep explanations simple.
So where do we start? Because I know I shouldn't just invite 10 people over to ring the bell.
No, definitely not. You control the variables. You start incredibly small. You find a clean recording of a doorbell sound on your smartphone, and you play it at the lowest possible volume setting while sitting quietly in your living room.
And this is where we bring in the heavy artillery. The article is very specific about this. You need high-value treats.
Yes, high value is key.
I want to stress this for anyone new to training who is listening. We are not talking about the dry kibble they eat every day for breakfast.
No, they won't work for kibble if they're stressed.
Exactly. We are talking about the canine equivalent of that decadent chocolate. Small, pea-sized pieces of cheese, boiled chicken, hot dogs, or whatever absolute favorite snack makes their eyes go wide.
Really smelly stuff.
Right. So you are sitting there, you play the sound at a volume of 1 on your phone, and you immediately hand them a piece of chicken. But, and I have to challenge this because there is a point in the text that stops a lot of people in their tracks.
Okay, what is it?
It says you should give the treat immediately when the bell rings, even if the dog starts to bark.
Ah, yes.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Why on earth would we actively reward a dog while they are barking their head off? Doesn't that just teach them to bark more?
It is the most common point of resistance for owners, and understandably so, because it feels entirely backwards.
It really does.
But if we look at the underlying neurology, it makes perfect sense. In this initial phase, you are not training a behavior. You are changing an emotion.
Emotion first, behavior second.
Exactly. Operant conditioning, which is teaching a dog to sit or stay for a reward, comes later. Right now, we are in the realm of classical conditioning.
Okay, so break that down for me.
If the dog hears the sound, feels a spike of anxiety, barks out of instinct, but then suddenly a piece of roasted chicken appears in front of their nose, their brain experiences a hard reset.
Like it short-circuits the panic.
Yes, the value of the chicken is so high that it literally interrupts the neurological anxiety cycle. We are trying to alter the emotional association with the auditory trigger first, before we demand perfect, quiet compliance.
Oh, wow. Because if we withhold the treat...
Right, if you withhold the treat and wait for them to stop barking, they might remain locked in a state of panic, and the association never changes. By delivering the treat immediately upon the sound, you are creating a new fundamental truth in the dog's world.
Which is, the sound of the bell makes chicken fall from the sky.
Precisely.
That distinction is everything. We are changing how they feel about the sound before we change what they do about the sound. That takes so much pressure off the owner.
It really does. You aren't fighting them.
You don't have to enforce rules right now. You just have to be a chicken dispenser when the phone goes ding. And to make this manageable, keeping these initial desensitization sessions short and fun is paramount.
Very short.
You don't want to subject them to an hour-long marathon of doorbell noises. That just floods their system with stress.
Flooding is exactly what we want to avoid. If you push the session too long, the dog experiences cognitive fatigue.
They just get tired of thinking.
Yeah, and the high-value treats lose their novelty, the dog's stomach gets full, and the underlying stress of the noise creeps right back in. We're talking about 2 to 3 minutes maximum per session.
Wow, that's nothing.
It should feel like an upbeat, highly rewarding, incredibly brief game. And for owners who are just starting out, there is a brilliant recommendation here. Document your progress with a simple training journal.
I love the journal idea. It doesn't need to be a complex spreadsheet, right?
No. Just a basic notebook on your kitchen counter. You jot down the date, the volume level on your phone, and a quick note on whether the dog seemed relaxed or tense.
Because human memory is flawed.
Very flawed. We tend to only remember the bad moments. When you look back at that journal after 10 days, you will be stunned to see that you've moved the volume from level 1 up to level 6, and the dog is just wagging their tail. It provides the psychological momentum owners need to keep going.
That momentum is so important because consistency is where the magic happens. I was thinking about how to actually fit this into a normal, busy life. Setting up a daily routine checklist for consistent practice at home is the only way this doesn't get forgotten.
Routine is everything.
The simplest way is to anchor it to things you already do. So let's outline a simple morning and evening routine for doorbell training success for you guys listening.
Let's do it.
For example, every single morning, while you are standing in the kitchen waiting for your coffee to brew, you do a 90-second session with the phone app and the cheese.
Perfect.
Then in the evening, right before you prepare their dinner, when they're highly food motivated anyway, you do another 90-second session. It becomes muscle memory for both of you.
Anchoring the training to existing habits is a highly effective psychological tool for humans. Now, while we are focused on the electronic chime, we also need to address the other major trigger, the physical knock on the door.
Oh, right. Knocking is totally different.
The methodology of desensitization remains the same, but the sensory experience for the dog is completely different. An electronic doorbell is an auditory cue. A knock is percussive.
It's physical.
It creates a physical vibration that travels through the wood of the door, into the frame of the house, and often through the floorboards, right into the dog's paws.
I never even thought about them feeling it in their paws.
From an evolutionary standpoint, a knock feels like a physical breach of the den's perimeter. It is much more invasive. Therefore, your desensitization needs to start even slower.
That makes total sense. A knock is a tangible impact. So how do we simulate that safely? You can't really control the volume of a knock the same way you control a slider on a smartphone app.
You control the intensity and the location. You do not start by pounding on the heavy wooden front door.
Right.
You might start by having a family member lightly tap with a single knuckle on an interior door, maybe a bedroom door down the hall, while you sit with the dog in the living room and deliver the treats.
So you're muffling the vibration and distancing the threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Over a period of days or weeks, as the dog begins to associate the tapping with the reward, you gradually increase the firmness of the knock, and eventually you migrate the exercise to the actual front door.
Okay, so let's map out where we are in this journey for the listener. We have spent a few weeks doing our incredibly consistent, short, fun morning and evening sessions. We've used our training journal. The dog is no longer viewing the sound of the bell or the knock as a threat. In fact, they hear the ding-dong and they immediately look at us, licking their chops, expecting a piece of chicken.
The emotional flip has happened.
The emotional flip has happened. But here's the problem. They are still physically standing right in the middle of the entryway, acting like a roadblock.
Yes.
We have managed their emotions, but we haven't managed their behavior. We need to give them a job. We have to tell them where to go and what to do with that anticipation.
That is the perfect pivot point. You transition from emotional regulation to spatial and behavioral management. The dog is looking at you saying, I know something good is happening. What do you want me to do to earn it?
And this is where we introduce the concept of environmental preparation and the place command.
Yes. The source material is adamant about setting up the physical environment for success before you even begin asking the dog to perform. You are essentially creating a designated doorbell station in your home.
Let's get really practical for our listeners and list the essential items you need to prepare your home environment for this specific training. Because if you are a new owner, you want to gather these things before you start.
Okay, number one.
Number one, a designated mat or a comfortable dog bed that has a non-slip bottom. You don't want them sliding across hardwood floors when they run to it.
Definitely not.
Number two, a pouch or a small, easily accessible bowl of those high-value treats already chopped up into tiny pieces so you aren't fumbling.
Number three.
Number three is your dog's leash, which we are going to dive into deeply later regarding safety. And number four, you need to choose a quiet environment, initially away from the front door entirely, without the distraction of kids running around or the TV blaring.
Setting the stage for success.
Right. So you set up the station. The article suggests placing this mat in a quiet area that ideally breaks the direct line of sight to the front door. Why is that?
Breaking that line of sight is a crucial detail. If the dog is on their mat but can still stare intently at the front door, their visual system is locked onto the trigger.
They're still guarding it. basically.
Exactly. They are visually maintaining their guard post. By placing the mat around a corner or in an adjacent room, you are forcing them to disengage visually from the entrance, which significantly lowers their arousal level.
That's so smart.
Once the mat is in position, you choose your consistent verbal cue. It could be place, bed, station, or settle.
Does the word matter?
The specific phonetic sound of the word is irrelevant to the dog. What is absolutely critical is that every single human in the household uses that exact same word with the exact same neutral, clear intonation every single time. Consistency is what removes the friction of confusion from the dog's mind.
So how do we actually teach this? Because I know if I just point at a mat and say place to an untrained dog, they are going to look at me like I have two heads.
Yeah, they won't know what you mean.
We aren't using the doorbell sound at all yet, right? We are just teaching the geography of the mat.
Correct. You separate the variables. You do not mix the doorbell trigger with learning a new spatial command. You start by calmly walking the dog toward the mat.
Can I use food to help?
Yes, you can use a piece of that high-value cheese as a lure, holding it right in front of their nose to guide them. The microsecond, all 4 of their paws are physically on the mat, you clearly state your verbal cue place, and you immediately release the treat to them.
Okay, so paws hit the mat, place, treat.
Exactly. Then you toss a boring piece of kibble a few feet away to reset them, getting them off the mat. Then you lure them back. Paws hit the mat, place, treat. You are building a deeply ingrained reflex where the mat itself becomes a magnet for good things.
And the goal is to suggest using treats to reward calm waiting at the door, right? Not just treating them for touching the mat like it's a base in a game of tag, but actually lingering there. How do we build that duration?
You build duration in micro increments. Once they are happily trotting to the mat on command without the lure, you say place, they get on the mat, but this time, you wait 1 full second before handing them the treat.
1 second.
Just 1 second. If they stay, they get rewarded. Then you wait 3 seconds. Then 5. Then you take half a step backward, away from the mat. If they hold their position, you step back in and treat.
You are systematically expanding the parameters of time and distance.
You are teaching them that staying on the mat is the behavior that ultimately unlocks the reward, not just arriving there.
Okay, I have to jump in with a reality check here, because this sounds beautifully smooth in a controlled environment, but I want to push back on behalf of every dog owner listening right now.
I'm ready.
What happens when we finally introduce the actual doorbell into this perfectly practiced place routine? Let's say I do the training, the foundation is solid, I have my partner stand on the porch and ring the bell. I say place. My dog runs to the mat, gobbles down the piece of cheese, and then immediately spins around and sprints right back to the front door, barking furiously.
The hit and run.
Yes, because my dog, and many dogs out there, are absolute hit-and-run treat thieves. They will take the paycheck and immediately abandon the job.
It is an incredibly common, frustrating scenario, and it tests the patience of even seasoned trainers. But the text provides a very clear, albeit challenging, directive for this exact moment. Calmly lead them back to the mat and try again.
Calmly.
Yes. The operative word, the hinge upon which this entire training philosophy swings, is calmly. When the dog breaks the command and rushes at the door, your instinct is to get flustered.
Oh, I get so frustrated.
Your instinct is to raise your voice and say, no, go back, to sigh heavily, or to physically yank them away. But if you do that, you instantly inject anxiety and drama back into the scenario. You ruin the positive association you spent weeks building.
So we have to become emotional black holes. We absorb the chaos, but we don't reflect it back. If my dog breaks the command, I don't yell. I don't negotiate. I just walk over, pick up their leash, or gently take their collar, silently walk them back to the mat, and reset.
Exactly.
And I assume I don't give them a treat for just being led back, right? Because they broke the rule.
No treat. They do not get paid for failing and being escorted back to the starting line. They only get rewarded when they settle and hold the position again.
That requires so much discipline from the owner.
It does. You must become an anchor of calm predictability. The more boring and neutral you are when they make a mistake, the less fuel their arousal becomes. They start to realize that breaking the command doesn't result in an exciting confrontation with you, and it doesn't get them to the guest any faster.
It just results in a very boring, slow walk back to the mat.
Exactly.
It is about removing the payoff for the bad behavior. Now, let's say place just isn't clicking yet, or the layout of your home makes a mat difficult. The article is quite flexible here, isn't it?
Yes, very flexible.
It suggests using existing reliable commands that your dog already knows. If your dog has a world-class recall, you can use a cheerful come command to pull them away from the front door and into the kitchen. Or you can simply ask for a polite, focused sit right where they are in the hallway.
The core philosophy isn't necessarily about the mat itself.
Right. It is about providing an alternative, incompatible behavior. A dog cannot be furiously jumping and spinning at the door if their brain is actively focusing on holding a perfect sit while looking up at you.
That is the essence of behavioral redirection. You are giving an unemployed, hyperactive security guard a brand new, highly specific job with clear expectations. If we don't give them a job, they will invent one.
And their invention is usually barking at the door.
Precisely.
So we have the environment prepped, we have our doorbell station, the dog understands the place command or a solid sit. Practicing with a family member is great, but real life is messy. The delivery driver dropping off a package isn't going to stand on your porch for 10 minutes while you calmly reset your dog on the mat a dozen times.
No, they will.
We need a tactical approach for actual real-world events. This brings us to a crucial part of the process, a three-step method for handling the moment the doorbell rings. Let's detail this three-step training process clearly for the listeners, breaking down exactly how to execute this in the heat of the moment.
This is where the theoretical foundation meets practical application. Step 1 is to identify and redirect.
Identify and redirect.
The absolute crucial element here is timing. The moment that first trigger of excitement happens, the millisecond the chime sounds or the knock lands, you must immediately insert your verbal cue to redirect your attention. You are attempting to interrupt the frenzy before the dog crosses their emotional threshold into unmanageable territory.
Okay, so to make this incredibly actionable for the person listening right now, let's create a simple checklist for owners to follow the exact moment after the doorbell rings. Here is your protocol.
I like a good checklist.
Right, okay. Ring. Step 1. You, the human, take a deep, visible breath to ensure your own body language is relaxed.
Crucial step.
Step 2. Deliver your cue clearly, neutrally, and confidently, like place or sit. Step 3. Move purposefully toward the doorbell station to physically guide the dog with the leash if they hesitate.
That's step 4.
Step 4, and I think this is the secret sauce, focus on rewarding quiet behavior during the initial few seconds after knocking.
That is the secret sauce.
That tiny, fragile window of silence right after the sound, when the dog is tilting their head, trying to figure out what's happening but hasn't barked yet. If you can mark that silence with a yes and a treat, you are capturing gold.
Capturing that initial hesitation is profound because you're rewarding the dog's own internal pause. You're validating their moment of assessment before it turns into a reaction. And that leads seamlessly into step 2, explain how to build self-control.
Self-control.
This is the core work. Once they are in their place or holding their sit, you are asking them to maintain that position while the environment around them gets increasingly stimulating. You are gradually increasing the time and the distractions between the trigger and the reward.
I love that phrase, build self-control. It completely reframes how we view dog behavior. It makes you realize that self-control in dogs is not an innate moral virtue. A dog isn't born good or bad at waiting.
Exactly. It's not a moral failing if they jump.
Right. Self-control is quite literally neurological stamina that has to be developed second by second, repetition by repetition. It is a muscle. If you as a human have never run a mile in your life, I cannot ask you to go run a marathon on day 1. Your muscles would fail.
Great analogy.
Similarly, if your dog has never practiced holding still for 5 seconds while excited, their neurological muscles will fail if you suddenly expect them to wait quietly for 5 minutes while you chat with the mail carrier. We have to build that stamina.
You are conditioning their nervous system to tolerate the intense friction of anticipation. Think about the arousal level of a dog when they know someone is on the other side of that door. It is through the roof. Building that self-control muscle means breaking the arrival of a guest into tiny, manageable increments. First, ask them to hold place while you merely take one step toward the front door. Reward.
Just one step.
Yes. Then hold place while you walk all the way to the door. Reward. Then hold it while you reach out and touch the doorknob. Reward. Then, while you turn the deadbolt, then while you open the door just 1 single inch.
Wow, breaking it down that much.
If at any point in the sequence the dog breaks their position, you immediately stop. You close the door, you calmly walk them back to their mat, and you lower the criteria for the next attempt. You are showing them that their calm stillness is the key that literally unlocks the front door.
It requires an incredible amount of patience and repetition from the owner. Which brings us to step 3, reinforce calm behavior. This step is about the long-term sustainability of the training.
Yes, moving past the initial learning phase.
The article talks about consistently rewarding with verbal praise, using a happy, upbeat tone, saying good job or yes, along with physical petting and, initially, those high-value treats. But it introduces a critical concept that I know makes some owners nervous.
Phasing out the treats.
Phasing out the treats over time. I want to dive into this because if it were up to my dog, he would gladly accept a lifetime hourly salary paid in sharp cheddar cheese. Why do we need to phase out the food?
We phase out the constant food rewards for a very specific psychological reason. We want to ensure the dog doesn't just become a transactional treat-dispensing robot.
Right, we don't want them doing it just for the cheese.
We want them to genuinely internalize the etiquette as the new normal way of living. If a dog only goes to their mat because they can visually see a piece of cheese in your hand, you haven't actually trained a reliable behavior. You've merely negotiated a temporary bribe.
A bribe.
The moment you don't have cheese, the training collapses. To prevent this, once the behavior is solid, we move from a continuous reinforcement schedule to what behaviorists call a variable reinforcement schedule.
It is essentially the psychology of a slot machine, right? The unpredictability is what keeps the engagement high.
Precisely the same mechanism. At first, you pay out every single time. Then, you might give a treat 3 out of every 4 times they successfully go to place. Then, every other time.
Keeping them guessing.
Then, randomly, maybe they get a treat on the first ring, no treat on the second, and a jackpot of 3 treats on the 5th. But here's the absolute rule. While you fade the food, you never fade the enthusiastic verbal praise and the emotional warmth. You always give them a genuine, yes, good boy.
They still get the emotional paycheck.
Exactly. Eventually, through this process, the state of calmness itself and the ultimate opportunity to be released to politely snip the guest becomes the intrinsic reward.
I think it helps to visualize how this actually plays out in a normal household. Let's incorporate some encouraging examples of how consistency changes dog behavior over time. Let's look at a realistic narrative arc for a new owner.
Let's walk through the timeline.
Week 1. The doorbell rings, and it is absolute chaos. You can't hear yourself think. But you start playing the sound on your phone at volume level 1, dispensing cheese, just trying to survive.
Surviving.
Week 3. You've introduced the mat. You are practicing the place command daily. The dog goes to the mat, but the moment the actual bell rings, they still bark twice, though they manage to keep their paws on the bed. You are making progress, but it's messy.
Right. It's a transition.
Then we hit week 6. You've stuck to your morning and evening routines. You are outlining a weekly schedule for short and fun training sessions, maybe 10 minutes total a day. Suddenly, a friend drops by unannounced.
The real test.
The bell rings, the dog's ears perk up, they look at you, they turn around, trot over to their mat, spit down, and just stare at you, waiting for their praise. You are standing in your hallway in total silence.
It's beautiful when that happens.
The transformation literally unfolds right at your doorstep. You can see the gears turning in their head as they actively choose self-control over their instinct for chaos. It is such a rewarding moment for an owner.
It is one of the most fulfilling milestones in dog ownership because it represents a profound level of communication and trust between the human and the animal. However, we must address the reality of the transitional period.
The messy middle part.
Yes. While you are on week 2 or week 3 of this journey, real life does not pause. You will have sudden guests arrive without a prior training appointment, the unexpected package delivery requiring a signature, the neighbor dropping off mail.
Yeah, you can't stop the world.
If the dog isn't fully trained yet, how does an owner manage those high-stakes moments without ruining their progress?
That is the million-dollar question. Because you can't just yell through the heavy wood door, hold on, don't move, we are only on week 3 of our Doggozila protocol, I need to reset my dog 10 times. You look like a crazy person to your delivery driver.
You really do.
Explain how to handle sudden guests without a prior training appointment, because this ruins so many people's confidence.
For sudden, unscripted guests, management must supersede training.
Management over training.
Okay. If you know deep down that your dog is not neurologically prepared to handle a live guest at the door without failing, you do not force the training scenario. Doing so only allows them to rehearse the very behavior you are trying to extinguish.
You're just letting them practice parking.
Exactly. Instead, you manage the environment. The moment you hear the unexpected knock, before you even move toward the front door, you calmly take the dog by the collar or leash, lead them into a secure back bedroom, a bathroom, or their crate, and shut the door.
Just remove them.
You completely remove them from the equation. Only then do you go and sign for your package. You protect the training by preventing a failure.
It is an act of preservation. And the article also provides practical tips for keeping your dog busy before guests arrive, specifically when you do know someone is coming. Like, if you are hosting a dinner party at 7 Euro p.m., you have the advantage of foresight.
Foresight is your best friend.
You don't just wait for the bell to ring and hope for the best. You prepare. 5 minutes before the expected arrival, you give the dog a highly engaging, long-lasting distraction. A frozen Kong stuffed with peanut butter, a complex puzzle feeder, or a high-quality chew bone.
Keep that mouse busy.
Right. You put them on their placemat with this item. It physically occupies their mouth, making barking difficult, and the act of licking and chewing naturally releases endorphins that soothe their nervous system just as the stressful event begins.
Proactive management is a hallmark of excellent dog ownership. You are setting the stage for success rather than reacting to failure. But up to this point, we have been discussing what I would call the standard model of a reactive dog. The single, moderately anxious family pet.
The baseline.
We need to shift our focus to scenarios where the baseline difficulty is multiplied. We need to navigate complex canine challenges, starting with the multi-dog household.
Oh, the multi-dog household. If you have 2 or 3 dogs and that doorbell rings, it is no longer just a reaction. It is a full-blown pack mentality event.
It is absolute chaos.
The feedback loop of chaos is incredible to witness. Dog A hears the bell and barks. Dog B is startled by dog A, so dog B starts howling. Dog C feeds off the combined adrenaline and starts running laps around the living room, knocking over furniture. It is an echo chamber of pure, unadulterated anxiety.
It feeds on itself instantly.
The article is incredibly firm on how to handle this. You absolutely must conduct separate training sessions.
You have to isolate them to break that emotional contagion. It is biologically impossible to train 2 highly aroused dogs simultaneously if they're actively feeding off each other's adrenaline spikes. You cannot teach a dog self-control when their sibling is screaming in their ear.
It's just not fair to ask that of them.
No, it's not. The protocol is strict. You put dog A in another room behind a closed door, ideally with one of those frozen chew toys we mentioned to keep them quiet. Then you work entirely one-on-one with dog B in the hallway. You teach dog B the place command. You do the doorbell desensitization. You build dog B's self-control muscle.
And then what? You switch.
Once that session is over, you swap them. You give each dog the individualized, undivided attention they require to understand the mechanics of what you're asking. Only after both dogs are completely individually reliable do you even attempt to slowly integrate them during a practice session.
It takes twice as long, but it is the only path forward. Now, what about the dog that is just inherently hyperactive, the dog that vibrates with energy from the moment they wake up?
The high-drive dogs.
Yeah. The article drops a golden rule that I think applies to almost every behavioral issue. A tired dog is a calm dog. It explicitly advises increasing daily physical exercise and mental stimulation to reduce reactivity.
It's so fundamental.
I want to share ways to increase physical exercise for a calmer dog because I don't think people realize how regular exercise helps reduce overall barking levels. How does tiring them out literally change their doorbell response?
It alters their baseline physiological state. If a dog has a massive reservoir of unspent physical and mental energy, that energy is actively looking for an outlet. When the doorbell rings, that sound acts as a spark in a powder keg. Boom!
Explosion.
All that pent-up energy explodes into frantic guarding or jumping. By systematically draining that energy reservoir before the trigger ever occurs, you are lowering their overall arousal threshold. But we need to define exercise accurately.
Okay, let's define it.
A slow 10-minute sniff walk around the block while you check your emails does not drain the energy of a young Labrador retriever. We are talking about cardiovascular exertion, playing fetch in an open field until their tongue is hanging out, taking them for a sustained jog.
Getting their heart rate up.
Yes. Using a flirt pole, which is essentially a giant cat teaser wand for dogs that taps into their prey drive and requires intense sprinting and sharp turns, tiring them out remarkably fast.
And we cannot ignore mental stimulation, which the text highlights. Brain work is exhausting for a dog. 15 minutes of learning a complex new trick or doing focused scent work where you hide their breakfast kibble around the living room and force them to use their nose to find it. That intense concentration can drain a dog as effectively as a 2-mile run.
It really can. Sniffing is exhausting.
When their physical and cognitive needs are fully met, they simply do not have the excess adrenaline available to pour into a frantic doorbell reaction. They hear the knock, and instead of exploding, they think, I'm too tired for this nonsense, and they stay on their bed.
It is the foundation of all behavioral modification. However, we must draw a clear distinction between a dog that is simply hyperactive and a dog that is exhibiting true, overprotective or aggressive tendencies.
This is an important pivot.
The source material brings this up, and we need to describe how to handle dogs that are being overprotective. This is a significantly more complex issue. A dog that is aggressively charging the door, hackles raised, baring teeth, is operating from a fundamentally different emotional place than a dog that just wants to jump on the guest to lick their face.
Yes, the stakes are so much higher there. The article suggests using controlled, positive socialization to teach protective dogs that new people aren't threats. But I want to dig into the psychology of that. Why does a dog become overprotective in the first place? Often we think they're trying to be the tough alpha of the house, but isn't it usually rooted in something much more fragile?
In the vast majority of cases, true overprotective behavior stems from a profound lack of confidence and fear-based reactivity.
Fear, not dominance.
Exactly. The dog feels that the environment is unsafe, and more importantly, they feel that you, the human, are incapable of managing the threat. They feel they must take on the burden of security.
They don't think you can handle it.
Right. Building their confidence involves showing them, through highly controlled socialization, that strangers bring positive outcomes, not danger. You might have a guest stand 20 feet away, completely ignoring the dog, no eye contact, no reaching out, and gently toss high-value treats on the ground. You are slowly dismantling the dog's belief that stranger equals threat.
But while we are doing this delicate psychological work, we cannot compromise on immediate safety. This is critical. We need to detail specific safety precautions for keeping guests separate from overprotective dogs during these early stages.
Safety is paramount.
The text emphasizes explaining the importance of using leashes during early training for safety. If your dog is a flight risk, or worse, a potential bite risk, you cannot just cross your fingers and hope your weak-to place command is going to hold when the door opens.
No, absolutely not.
You keep a sturdy leash attached to their collar or harness. You can step on the middle of the leash, giving them enough slack to comfortably sit or lie down on their mat, but physically preventing them from launching themselves across the hallway if they lose control.
The leash is your emergency brake. But beyond the leash, we must emphasize using muzzles and maintaining safe distances for guest safety. There's a terrible stigma surrounding muzzles. People think it makes their dog look like a monster.
Yeah, people feel guilty using them.
But a muzzle is not a punishment. It is a highly responsible, ethical safety tool. If your dog has any history of nipping, biting, or aggressive lunging when over-aroused, a properly fitted basket-style muzzle, which allows the dog to pant, drink water, and accept treats, guarantees the physical safety of everyone involved.
It takes the risk off the table.
It does. It is impossible for a dog to learn, and it is impossible for you to project the calm, confident energy required for training if your heart is pounding because you are terrified your dog is about to bite the delivery person.
That is such a vital point. Your own anxiety about a potential bite will travel right down the leash and confirm to the dog that the guest is indeed terrifying. The muzzle protects the guest, but it also protects the dog from making a tragic, life-altering mistake.
Exactly right.
And alongside the physical tools, we need to include tips on keeping guests safe during training sessions through clear communication. Before your friend even arrives at your house, send them a text message. Tell them, hey, we are actively training the dog right now. When you walk through the door, I need you to pretend the dog is invisible. Do not look at him, do not speak to him, and absolutely do not reach out to pet him.
So important. Ignore the dog.
By removing the social pressure of eye contact and interaction, you give the overprotective dog the space they need to observe the guest without feeling confronted.
Managing the human guest is often harder than managing the dog. And while you are orchestrating all of this, the owner must be hypervigilant about the dog's emotional state. We need to provide expert guidance on recognizing signs of persistent stress in dogs during sessions.
Because they can't tell us they're stressed with words.
Exactly. A dog doesn't only communicate stress by barking or growling. They have a whole vocabulary of subtle micro-expressions. If, during your training, you notice your dog is suddenly yawning repeatedly when they aren't tired.
Yawning is a stress sign.
Yes. Or if they are excessively licking their lips or flicking their tongue, if their ears are pinned flat against their skull, if you see the whites of their eyes, often called whale eye, or if they're physically shivering, these are profound indicators that the dog is over threshold.
They aren't being stubborn in those moments. They are genuinely overwhelmed. If you see those signs, what is the protocol? Do you push through to finish the session?
Absolutely not. If you push through, you are flooding them,
Yeah.
which causes regression. If you see those stress signals, the training session ends immediately. You calmly remove the dog from the situation, let them decompress, and you make a mental note or write it in your training journal that the current setup is too difficult.
So you back up a step.
The next time you practice, you take a massive step back. You increase the distance from the door, you lower the volume of the doorbell sound, or you increase the value of the reward. You must work at the pace of the dog's nervous system.
And sometimes, despite our absolute best efforts, our consistency, and our patience, the issue is just too deeply ingrained. We need to highlight when owners should consult a professional behaviorist for persistent barking issues.
Yes, knowing when to ask for help is crucial.
The article gives clear advice on when to call a professional dog trainer. It states that if the issues persist, if the barking is escalating into genuine aggression, if you feel completely overwhelmed and defeated by the process, or if there are any safety concerns whatsoever regarding bites, it is time to call in backup.
Don't wait until someone gets hurt.
Keep explanations simple for new dog owners starting their training journey. A professional trainer is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you care enough to get the right help.
I think it is essential to validate the frustration many owners feel. It is exhausting to live in a state of high alert in your own home. Seeking professional help should be completely normalized.
You really should.
A certified dog trainer or a veterinary behaviorist possesses a level of observational skill that the average owner simply doesn't have. They can spot the subtle body language cues we just discussed. They can identify the exact fraction of a second where your timing with the treat is off.
They see the matrix.
They do. Most importantly, they can create a structured weekly plan for practicing doorbell responses with your dog that is custom-tailored to the unique layout of your house, the specific temperament of your dog, and the reality of your family's schedule. There is immense relief in handing the roadmap over to an expert when you're lost in the weeds.
Absolutely. So, as we pull all of these threads together, we have mapped out a comprehensive journey from chaos to calm. We started by deconstructing the emotional triggers of the electronic chime and the physical knock. We learned how to actively shift those negative associations using high-value treats and extreme patience. We discussed the critical importance of preparing your environment and establishing a reliable place command as an anchor.
And we walked through the 3 steps.
We walked step by step through the masterclass of identifying the trigger, redirecting the attention, building the stamina of self-control, and finally reinforcing that calm behavior while phasing out the food rewards like a slot machine.
The variable reinforcement.
We tackled the heavy-duty challenges, the echo chamber of multi-dog households, the necessity of exhausting physical and mental exercise, and the paramount importance of safety protocols, leashes, muzzles, and guest management when dealing with overprotective reactivity.
It's a lot, but it's doable.
And through it all, we've shared advice on maintaining steady training habits for long-term success. It all hinges on consistency, creating those small, manageable morning and evening routines, utilizing your training journal to track the micro-victories, and reframing your mindset so that every single time that bell rings, you don't see it as an annoyance, but as a deliberate opportunity to practice.
It is an opportunity to rewrite the script of your household dynamics. It changes the narrative from one of conflict to one of cooperation. And as we conclude, I think the methodology we've discussed opens the door to a really fascinating, broader philosophical concept.
Yes, I want to leave our listeners with a final provocative thought to mull over as they go about their day. We have just spent an hour taking a deep dive into how we can completely rewrite a dog's emotional, visceral reaction to a loud, sudden, stressful noise.
Using patience and cheese.
Using patience and cheese. We do it by breaking the challenge down into tiny incremental steps, managing their environment, and offering massive positive reinforcement. We give them grace when they fail, and we calmly guide them back to their place.
Right.
But what if we applied that exact same methodology to ourselves? What other alarms or stressors in our own human lives could we actively retrain ourselves to perceive differently?
Oh, that's a great question.
Think about that smartphone notification from your boss on a weekend. Think about the sound of a crying toddler or the brake lights of traffic gridlock on your commute. We react to these things with our own spikes of cortisol and frustration.
We really do.
What if we treated our own psychological triggers with the same meticulous patience and positive reinforcement we are so willing to give to our dogs? What if, instead of spiraling into an immediate stress reaction, we trained ourselves to take a deep breath, to find our own internal psychological place of calm, to acknowledge the stressor without reacting, and to give ourselves a metaphorical piece of cheese for handling it well?
That is a profound reflection. At our core, we are all just nervous systems, human and canine alike, trying to navigate an increasingly loud, unpredictable world. If our dogs, with their instinctual drives, can learn to find quiet peace amidst the intense chaos of a ringing doorbell, perhaps we have the capacity to learn to find our own deliberate peace amidst the alarms of our daily lives, too.
I love that perspective. A little structured grace for our dogs and a little structured grace for ourselves. Thank you for listening, dear Brigadiers, and if you have any questions, visit the source article on Doggozila Magazine at doggozila.com. That was all for this episode, and until the next time, bye to all listeners of the Bark Brigade podcast.